If your conversations on dating apps are boring and dry, it's probably because you're not being specific. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's start with this example. My openers are always something they say in their profile that I ask about. I just take 10 seconds, scan it. If there's anything that stands out, I'll ask about it. And in this case, she mentioned she likes video games, so I asked her what she plays. Now, this exact topic fizzles out, but you can see it's already a million times better than saying something funny or saying something generic, because she could have said some game that I actually have a lot of connection to, and that could be like a whole conversation. I've done this a lot of times where I just happen to ask one thing, it's related to me, and then we just talk about it straight for a couple of days, and then I ask her out. Like, it really can be that simple. And just being specific just gives you so many more opportunities for where to take the conversation and for also building a connection with something in common. So I did actually have some relation to Baldur's Gate, but yeah, I mean, if I played the Harry Potter's game, at least that's something that we'd have in common that I could talk about. Now, I went back to her profile, noticed that she was in the US, which I'm in Canada. I didn't even know Hinge worked like allows you to match with other people from other countries. And here's something else that you can do to kind of elevate your conversations. It's pretty simple, but when they mention a person, place, or a thing, I'll just give a very small moment of thought towards just asking myself if I have any connection to it. And in this case, she mentions Bellingham. So I'm like, okay, Bellingham. In the past, where did I go when I went to Bellingham? Because I've been there a few times. It's pretty close by. And I remember back in high school, everybody was obsessed with going to a mall there called Bellis Fair. And it's not a very special mall, but back in high school, way back when for me, they had Abercrombie and they had Hollister. And those stores, for whatever reason, weren't open yet in Canada. And everybody would go down there all the time. And then that was like, again, something because she said something specific. I shared a bit of a story with it. We talk a bit about that. And, she talks about how she had like the Hollister across the chest, which is so funny that was like the point back then. Like you couldn't just get a shirt from there. You had to like get the brand name just to be like, look how cool I am. Next, I did ask her about like having a passport or not with the eyes, the eye emoji. I don't use emojis very often, but I like that one. It just kind of like hints at a meetup. But in this case, just because it was kind of a headache that she's from a different country, I didn't really progress things. Now, with this next example, I have a video as my main picture, which for some reason she thought was AI. Like in the video, it's doing very, very well. I just kind of talk like this, talk about a few different things, how I just got out of a relationship, blah, blah, blah. But she thought it was AI, which is funny because it's definitely not. But again, instead of moving off, I talk a little bit about that a little longer. I share specifics about how I do have experience talking to the camera and how I actually have a decent camera. And because I shared that stuff, it turns out that she's a photographer. And so she asked what camera I use. And that's like, again, if I hadn't shared that information, which, wasn't necessarily called for, like that wasn't like a natural flow of the conversation for me to share that information. But because I did it, now she's a photographer. We can have a whole thing about talking about cameras. I'm kind of into them. And now a little bit later, when she told me her camera she uses, and I teased her a little bit about her pictures, which are like photo shoot cameras, asking if they're AI. Now, I'll skim their profile for something to talk about. And in this case, she's from Ukraine. And it could literally just be that simple. And because of that, I'm like, oh, turns out there's actually a lot of Ukrainian women here from the war. We had a great conversation. She kind of opened up about it. It was very hard. She had to leave family behind. She only has a work visa for 2 more years. She doesn't know what she's going to do after that. I joked around that she has to find some old rich guy to marry. And again, just something as small as where they're born can be just a huge opportunity for the conversation to go deeper, build connection. And then this is my standard line I'll use more or less to suggest a date. It doesn't need to be complicated. If they're willing to go on a date with you, it doesn't really matter how you ask it. Yeah, I usually either go for a drink or a coffee. That's how I like my first dates. But if you're curious, she said she's sick. And I haven't really progressed things from there. But next, this one worked well for me because I actually share specific information about myself in my profile. It moved very fast so I share something about how I like astronomy. I think I might have mentioned it twice. And second, response, she talks about using my telescope, which I had just mentioned when we were talking about space. And now she lives far away. I wasn't super interested, or as otherwise, maybe I would have suggested, like, let's go this weekend or whatever. But I just said it was a cool idea. But then she then followed that up with asking me out to the planetarium. Like, it just shows, like, the right person needs to actually know they're the right person. Like, share that information, be specific in your profile, and obviously be specific when you're asking, questions in the chat. Now, next, this was the rare time I commented instead of liking, because it's just a total waste of time. I'm going to make a video on that soon. But I was having a laugh with her on the meme, the Taiwan being number one, China number two, and she's from there. Her English is a little rough, but she asked if I've been there, asking me something specific. And sure enough, I actually have a relation to Taiwan because my cousin lives there. I haven't been there. She asked in her profile that she mentioned in her profile that she manages a YouTube channel. Again, thankfully, she mentioned something specific because that's relevant to me. She mentioned relaxing, so I just built off of that, asking about it. She says she's new to Canada, exploring Vancouver, like perfect opportunity. If you want some company exploring Vancouver, I'm your guy. That's very natural way to kind of allude to meeting up. She says she's a Vancouver newbie. I kind of tease or flirt that she's a newbie. We chatted for another day, and I suggested a date, which she ended up agreeing for the following week. And that's kind of like how most chats will go down. Now, if you do have good enough pictures and play the numbers game, like, you can still have success with boring chats, but your odds of success will just go up so much more. Like, it'll just be way higher. But to recap, ask something specific and relatable based on their profile. When you get a response, try to dig deeper into that topic, or just add any personal experience if you can. Then you just want to chat for like 2 or 3 days. It depends how much you're actually chatting within a single day. I then suggest a date somewhere. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Just say we should get a coffee sometime soon, or even say early next week or whatever. And that's it. Hopefully, this is helpful. If it is, let me know. But otherwise, I'll talk to you again in a few days.